Hey guys, welcome to Crazy Burger. So in this video we're going to be looking at the Technos edition of the Super Pocket. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. Okay guys, so let's have a look at the Technos edition of the Super Pocket from Hypermegatech or Blaze, pretty much the same company. So we've got 15 arcade classics built into this little unit. A lot of Double Dragon games, River City Ransom, Renegade, blah blah blah. Just to sort of confirm, obviously there's a small asterisk next to the arcade part. There are probably about 6 games that are a mix of NES, SNES and Game Boy, so they're not all arcade games. It is rated 12, but yeah, it is pretty much suitable for most people. There's some nice detail on the side of the box. This is number 4 in the Super Pocket range, and you see the different graphics there on the side, which is quite nice. Also got some details on the back of all the games that are preloaded, so that's not on a cart, it's just basically preloaded onto the device. Got Double Dragon Arcade, Double Dragon 2 and 3 Arcade, Super Double Dragon which is SNES, Renegade which is the arcade version, Super Dodgeball also arcade, Combo Tribes arcade, Blockout, Minky and Monkey which are both arcade, Super Spike Volleyball I believe is the NES version, Double Dragon 8-bit console, that's really referring to the NES, Double Dragon 8-bit handheld, that's Game Boy, River City Ransom is NES, Crash and the Boys Street Challenge is NES, and lastly Mysterious Stones Dr. John's Adventure is also arcade. You've got the option to choose an easy mode for the arcade games, that is. They are defaulted to normal, but if you want a little bit of an easier experience, choose easy mode and it might make your experience a little bit more relaxed. It's got a 2.8 inch high quality IPS screen, which is really nice. It's excellent quality, great sound as well, 4+ hours gameplay which is usually pretty solid, USB-C charging, rechargeable battery, and you can expand your gaming library with Evercade Carts here. There are 500 plus games covering over maybe 50 to 60 carts already, and it's continuing to expand. So if you're interested in adding more games, you can buy some carts which retail about £18 to £22 depending on what cart you're actually picking up. But yeah, very very cool. We're going to have a look through this device, play through some of the games. I'll give you my honest opinion if it's actually worth picking up. Now obviously a lot of people will probably be interested in this if you missed out on the Evercade carts, because there were 2 Evercade carts on that device. You've got the Evercade console Technos collection and the arcade collection, 2 separate carts, but sadly they are now legacy and no longer manufactured by Blaze, which means if you've missed out, then it's going to cost you probably £100+ to even pick those carts up on eBay. However, this is only 50 quid to pick up, so it might be a more attractive option to a lot of people to maybe play these games on here. And it has the added bonus that we have Double Dragon Arcade, which was not on the Technos arcade cart that was released on Evercade, so that's interesting. They didn't release it because they had issues with the emulation, or more or less that it was quite running quite slow, and they didn't want that to sort of give them a bad name. So be interesting to see how that performs. I'm looking forward to trying it. But without further ado, let's get this unboxed and let's play some of the games. So definitely, just as a little tip, make sure you open it from the bottom end rather than the top. It is a lot easier just to sort of slide out like that. And you get a sort of poster with this. It basically just has some interesting info about the games and carts that are available on Evercade, and this is the actual unit itself. There's also a charge cable in here. I would obviously recommend using that to charge your device at all times. Okay, so this is the actual unit. It's a sort of almost a light blue colour. It's very nice, and I think it's almost white, or maybe even light grey, I guess. Has nice features, I love it. This is your menu button. You've got start, select, and you've got your face buttons. They are quite small, and D-pad is okay. You just need to be wary. Sometimes it does click in and that can cause issues with some games. Hopefully it won't affect any of the games on this unit. This is your speaker. The sound on this device is absolutely fantastic, certainly one of the plus points. On the bottom here you've got a headphone jack, you've got some the on-off switch and your charging slot there, and on the side you've got some, I think they're vents on the side here, on the side, and then on the back you've also got a vent, and you have the details of the device. And this is just a dummy cart that's included. It's just complete plastic. It just covers up the space where you would put your Evercade carts on the back. Now obviously it has some shoulder buttons on here. They are pretty flat, as you can see here. They're just flat on the device, and this is a volume up and down button. Now the shoulder buttons, they're not the greatest, to be honest. Any games that include use of that can be a little bit cumbersome to reach round the back to play, but I'll try and cover that through the video. Any games that use it, I'll try and highlight any issues that I've found. But anyway, let's get this unit turned on and have a look at the games. Okay, so let's have a look through the games. We've got 8-bit handheld version, that's basically the Game Boy version, Double Dragon NES, Double Dragon Arcade, Double Dragon 2 Arcade, Double Dragon 3 Arcade. So if you love Double Dragon, this is going to be for you, and you really wouldn't want to miss out on this. We've got Minky Monkey, Mysterious Stones, Renegade, River City Ransom, Super Dodgeball, Double Dragon 16-bit. This is a Super Double Dragon, that's the SNES version. Super Spike Volleyball, that's the NES. Combat Tribes Arcade, possibly my favourite game from this, and back to Blockout again. Now, probably interestingly about this, there's probably not a lot of games. I think the other Super Pockets probably offer better value for money because there are more games on them. But if you're obviously a fan of Double Dragon, that's not going to matter. This is going to be a must buy for you. Now, there's not an awful lot of options in this sort of Super Pocket. It is very, very minimal. You can't sort the games anyway. If you press the menu button, you've got access to a couple of other options. Evercade is basically where you would find your Evercade Carts if you put Evercade Carts on the top. There's more details down here if you want to sort of scroll through it and the different games and carts that are available. And there's information on Hypermegatech's own website if you want more info to buy those carts. Now, in the settings, not an awful lot. You've got display, you can mix between original ratio, pixel perfect, full screen. Now realistically, you probably want to leave it all on original ratio. Occasionally you might want to change it to full screen depending on what game you're playing. I'll cover that in the video. And then you've got some scan line shader options. That's about it. Now I know this probably isn't showing too great on this camera. The SAD display here I'm not that keen on. I think it is quite hard to see. You've got options for sound, obviously for the menu, you get different language options. Difficulty, as we mentioned on the box, you can choose between easy mode and normal. Sometimes some of these arcade games are brutally difficult, so it might be wise to choose easy even for the initial sort of playthroughs. And you've got legal support and credits. That's basically it. There's nothing fancy about it. It really is just all about a plug and play games and getting stuck in, and that's it. There's no frills, there's nothing exciting about it at all. But anyway, let's have a quick bash at some of the games. We'll play through all of them, I think. And yeah, I'll give me an honest opinion what the games are like and whether this is actually worth buying. So this is Blockout. Now obviously the arcade games, you need to press the select button to insert a coin, then press start to get started. Now this is like a columns Tetris 3D style game, and it is a little bit tricky to get your head round sometimes. But once you get your head round it, it is quite an addictive fun game. And you can swivel the blocks in different sort of ways to make them fit into the grid there, and obviously the grid is going down the way. And you're obviously trying to create a line to then disappear them. But yeah, sometimes it does get a little bit confusing. You get these three buttons, change the sort of, obviously the direction of the box, then you press the A to sort of confirm that's where you want to place it. It does get a little bit tricky. Maybe sometimes, like I said, it does take a little bit to get your head around the 3D aspect of it. But it is nice once you get used to it. It is very nice, but it does get a little bit frantic though. And obviously you've got, it says 5 faces. Basically you're trying to clear 5 lines, then you can move on to the next stage. Which, you know, it is quite addictive. I think on the Super Pocket it actually seems to fit a lot better than maybe playing on the EXP or the VS. I think it felt more at home on this little device. Okay, next up we've got Crash and the Boys Street Challenge. I've never been a big fan of this game at all. And I wasn't a big fan of the original Technos console collection on Evercade. More or less because I wasn't a big fan of Double Dragon games, and I didn't like this game either, but it is what it is. I just don't think it really translates that well. You've got a few different options you can choose from. I think you can play multiplayer as well, but obviously on the Super Pocket that is pretty pointless. Then you can choose the different players, but yeah, I think it's actually pass. It's not like you need the VS. You can actually probably pass the unit as one player at a time. I think that's what I'm suspecting. but it is a very tricky game. So if you maybe ideally want to practice some of the different events that are available here, but I don't know. It probably brings me to the controls. You can, if you press the menu button, you've got access to your save states. You want to just save it where it is, it will just create that. But you need to obviously aware it doesn't have timestamp, so you need to be aware what save you're obviously on at the latest save that is. But yeah, you've got controls, options. You can't change these. These are basically how they're defaulted. So if you want to know how the game's control, just press the menu button and you'll get that info. You can also change the display and reset the game and quit in there. Now I'm not really sure how this actually works. I'm not an expert. I just could not get to grips with this at all. But we're just trying practice. Choose your different teams. And it's usually a mixture of pressing the A and B button here. But I've never been a fan of this game at all. I just felt it was quite cumbersome and never really worked for me. Guess we need to sort of build up some speed and let go and hope for the best. Yeehaw. Hammer golf? Anyone? Bizarre. Does this make any sense? No. I mean, some of the events are probably kind of fun to play. Some of them I just didn't get to grips with at all. But I'm not a big fan of this game at all. Okay, on to Double Dragon. This is the 8-bit handheld version. Now this is basically the Game Boy version, which will become quite obvious once we start at this point. And I have to say I actually quite enjoyed playing this version of Double Dragon. I said we've got it on original aspect ratio at the moment. If you want full screen, it'll basically just stretch it a little bit. Now the fact that this ratio is kind of close, I'd probably just leave it how it is. Sometimes you want to change it to full screen, other times just leave it. It's obviously a personal choice at the end of the day. Now I have to be honest, I probably prefer playing the Game Boy version of Double Dragon to the NES version. Now that's just me. Some people might totally disagree. But I found this sort of version to be a lot more enjoyable. I love the big sprites, and it certainly seems more accessible. I felt the NES version just doesn't do it for me. Now I did actually own Double Dragon on the C64, and that version was awful. And that's maybe put me off a lot of the versions of Double Dragon that are out there. But personally, I think this one's really good. And interestingly, this one is not available on Evercade at all, so it's something of an exclusive. It certainly makes me wonder whether we'll actually see another Technos cart on Evercade. Will they release the games that you see here? Will it be like a special version, included with all the arcade games, maybe Double Dragon Arcade eventually on Evercade on a cart? Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, who knows. But anyway, at the moment, it's nice to get these games in some way, shape or form on the Super Pocket. This is a really nice version of Double Dragon. Now speaking of the devil, we've got Double Dragon 8-bit. This is the NES version. I know I'm not a massive fan of this version of Double Dragon. Although I probably prefer playing this to the arcade versions of Double Dragon 2 and 3. Never really been a huge fan of those. Now apologies, obviously if you love Double Dragon and this is probably your favourite version, then apologies, it's just my opinion. I'm not a massive fan of this version of Double Dragon at all. I think personally I'd rather play the Game Boy version than this. I think it's a bit amusing sometimes that Blaze decided not to release Double Dragon Arcade on Evercade when you've got the NES versions here that have so much flickering, but I guess that was standard for a lot of NES titles. I just felt they obviously didn't release Double Dragon Arcade in case they thought it was a slight on Evercade products that it wasn't performing very well, but anyway, it is what it is. And here it is, we got Double Dragon Arcade. So let's have a quick playthrough of this, see if we notice any slowdown, see what the emulation's actually like. Again, press the select button to insert a coin, start, and get stuck in. Now I think this was originally supposed to get released on Evercade. They actually showed it in their preview video, or was it maybe a preview screenshot, but it never actually made it onto Evercade. They decided not to release it, not even as a secret unlockable game. And I think that's a massive shame because this is fantastic. Maybe the best version of Double Dragon on this collection. That's just my opinion. I think it's really good fun to play. I guess hopefully there's no slowdown. I haven't noticed anything, to be honest. There might be something later on in the game that I've obviously not got to yet, but I haven't noticed anything too noticeable. It's been performing pretty well as far as I could tell. As you can see, it's going at a nice pace. Character movement seems fluid enough, and it's a lot of fun. Now, if you're a fan of Double Dragon, this is definitely going to entice you to get one of these devices. Absolutely terrific stuff. And I guess this is why a lot of folk out there love Double Dragon. I can see it now. When you see this running so well, it's a lot of fun to play. This is where we fell in love with beat 'em ups, I guess. Terrific stuff. Still pretty hard though. I mean, considering this is easy mode, I'm still getting beat up pretty easy by this boss. But yeah, excellent stuff. I really enjoyed this. Now for me, I think this is where things get a little bit complicated. Double Dragon 2, I'm not a fan of. I think it's just overly difficult. Even on easy mode, I found that it's just extremely excruciating to play through. Now obviously if you're a fan, you might be used to this, you might enjoy this, but personally I just felt it went a little bit downhill after the original Double Dragon. I'm not a fan of this. I just feel it's way too difficult. You're basically getting brutalised right from the off from these two guys here, and that's just me. So it's a tough start. I just feel it's just no fun to actually play through. Maybe you get used to it, I guess, as you're going through, but I don't know, I just feel it's just, the difficulty is far too high. Okay, moving on to Double Dragon 3, and things definitely get a little bit worse from here. This is a bit of a juddery mess. I'm not sure the best way of describing it, but it's not great. Considering Blaze decided to release this and not Double Dragon, definitely begs belief for me. And the characters sort of jerk all over the place. It just doesn't feel right, never feels right. The fighting is okay, graphically it's alright, but it's just the way those characters move, for me, just is a little bit off-putting. And yeah, it's definitely not my favourite version of Double Dragon. Okay, so moving away from Double Dragon, we've got Minky Monkey. Now this is where things get a little bit different. We've got the vertical aspect ratio here, which probably isn't ideal for these small screens. With this game you might actually get away with it, but personally I think this is one of those games you probably want to change the display mode to full screen to stretch it out a bit. Even though it looks absolutely awful, it's maybe a little bit easier on the eyes. Now the idea is to get these fruit items, take them to this sort of little box, and you've got 5 to do on this level before you can move on to the next one. So collect the items, put them on the box, and then you've got 1. So you've got 5 you need to do on each level. And don't obviously get into contact with that other creature that's floating about there, or you will game over. Oh. Kind of limited fun, I guess, but it's alright. Okay, moving on to Mysterious Stones, Dr. John's Adventure, and this was one of those games, it's obviously vertical aspect ratio as well, but it's one of those games I've just no idea what the hell to do. I guess you're trying to collect as much treasure from the rooms as you can, and then move on to the next stage, before it sort of collapses with lava. But yeah, I just found this one to be extremely weird. Almost like an Indiana Jones-esque style game. But it never made any sense to me, and as I said, you can change the aspect ratio to make it to full screen. A bit more playable, or I know it does look a little bit squashed, but probably a little bit easier on the eyes to play through, rather than the sort of original ratio that you're looking at. Now you can kick these items, you've got a gun I think as well, and you're trying to open up the treasures that you see in the room here, and then just basically survive. It's weird, there's no doubt about it, this is a very, very weird game. I said you've got a gun as well, and there's lots of different enemies that will try to stop you. But you've got a limited time, and then the room will start to fill up with lava, and then you basically need to escape before you die. But personally, I just found this game to be a wee bit pointless, just a little bit aimless and pointless. I didn't really enjoy it that much at all. Okay, moving on to Renegade. Now, something I definitely need to highlight here is the colour scheme definitely is a little bit sore on the eyes. Now, specifically when you go into the save and load screens. And when these pictures are actually filled up, sometimes it's not clear which picture you've chosen. And you can see there's obviously a sort of rectangular block across the one that you've chosen. But when those pictures are filled up, sometimes it's not actually easy to see. I don't think the colour scheme does this any favours at all. It does make it a little bit difficult. You can see it is a little bit difficult on the eyes there. So it'd be nice to get some options to change that, but sadly we don't have that. So this is Renegade, and this is a tough old cookie, no doubt about it. Nice looking game, but yeah, it's a very tough challenge. I find right away you've got so many bad guys on you that it makes it really difficult. Try to keep them at arm's length, because if you lose, you basically have to start all over again, which is where the frustration probably comes in a little bit. Cool game though. Whoa. I love the sound effects. Okay, moving on to River City Ransom. This is the NES version, and I quite enjoy this game. I'm not sure a lot of people enjoy it, but I think this is actually really cool. And I'd probably rather play this than Double Dragon on the NES. It is tricky, they're still very tricky. I think if you sort of lose, you have to go all the way back to the start as well, which can be a bit frustrating. But yeah, it's still fun, quite quirky. Again, you got loads of weapons, you get coins. I think you can spend them in a shop to get upgrades. I can't really remember, to be honest. He's running away from me, scared the cat. I'm going back to start the level. Okay, next up we'll have a look at Super Dodgeball, which I guess is the arcade version. I think we have the NES version on the Technos collection, which really is a bit of a flickery mess. Sadly, I'm not really a big fan of this game at all. I'm not particularly great at it either, which probably doesn't help. But yeah, I think obviously you've maybe seen the movie, you understand what you're supposed to do. It's obviously try and hit the ball against the opponents and try and take them out somehow, like that. And then keep going until obviously all the members in the other team are out. But personally, it's not really what I'm going to play an awful lot. I'm not a huge fan of the game at all. But it's okay for a couple of minutes. So next up is Super Double Dragon. This is the SNES 16-bit version. And maybe arguably that's certainly better than some of the other Double Dragon games on here. Now, interestingly, it does actually use all 4 buttons. Obviously the SNES had 4 buttons on the controller, so unlike maybe some of the other games it's only 2 buttons, you definitely use all 4 buttons. I think some of the games, I think this one in particular does have some of the special moves mapped to the shoulder buttons. But yeah, it's just basically a button combo. It's just trying to make it easier for you to actually play the game. You don't actually need to use the shoulder buttons if you don't want to, because sometimes using those shoulder buttons is a little bit tricky to reach round. So you can just ignore that if you want, or if you want to try and press it at some point you can. Yep, this is alright. It's not a bad version of Double Dragon, not amazing, but it's probably slightly better than maybe the NES versions. But obviously that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people love them anyway. Okay, next up we've got Super Spike Volleyball. I'm pretty sure this is the NES version. It's just volleyball, and I'm not really sure it's a great version of volleyball. Again, another one of those games that's probably okay to play for a few minutes, and that'll probably be it. Sometimes it is a little bit tricky to understand where the ball's going to land, and sort of put your character in that right place. Almost impossible, as you can see right there. Absolutely impossible. So a little bit too tricky for me. Not really a huge fan. But yeah, I need to get in the right position, try and smash it. And yeah, I made a complete mess of that. Okay, so last up is the Combo Tribes Arcade, and I think personally this is my most favourite game on the collection. It's a lot more fun to play than some of the other games. I think this is a terrific game. Now, interestingly, you've got a choice of 3 different characters. I don't remember having the choice in the sort of version on the cartridge. I might be wrong, to be honest, but I don't remember. I think the thing that definitely stands out with this game is the fact that the sprites are so large, but the movement of the sprites and the moves that you get access to, it's very fluid, it feels quick, and for me this is definitely more fun to play than some of the Double Dragon games we have on this collection. And it sort of gives you the impression it's sort of like a scrolling beat 'em up, or scrolling fighting game, whatever you want to call it. But the scrolling sections are not particularly long, so it's not like a sort of final fight sort of game where it just keeps on scrolling. It is very sort of basic and minimal, but it's still good fun, and there's bosses at the end of each of these sort of individual stages. Fun game, and probably not the most difficult game, I guess. You can obviously keep inserting coins and carry on, but I don't think it's anywhere near as tough as the Double Dragon games, Double Dragon 2 and 3 for example. It's certainly more fun. Okay, so that's our look at the inbuilt games. I think there's a reasonable selection, probably only 15, you'd ideally want a little bit more. I think after playing the Atari version that had 50 games on it, you feel a little bit shortchanged. I think there's more on the Taito version as well. But there's still a decent enough games here. If you love Double Dragon, you are really not going to want to miss out on this. I'm not really sure about some of the other games. I'm not a big fan of some of the other games. I wouldn't buy it specifically to play Mysterious Stones or Minky Monkey or Crash and the Boys, or obviously Blockout or the volleyball game, that type of thing. I think you're really going to buy this for the fighting games, even though I thought Blockout probably suited the Super Pocket better than any other device I've played on. I'm not sure you would want to still buy it just to play that game. You're definitely buying this for Double Dragon only. Anyway guys, let's have a quick look at Evercade cartridges and see if there's any issues with them. Now don't forget, you can expand your library with all these Evercade carts. This is just a selection of some of my favourite carts. And I've tried all of these and they all work absolutely fine. Now I did have an issue with Cathedral and Always Awakening working on the Atari Super Pocket. Happily to say, it's not a universal issue. It was just some strange issue with my Super Pocket. It does work fine on the Technos version, as do all of these carts. So all of the carts from Evercade should work fine, but I had the odd issue here and there that one cart or two didn't work. Not sure why. It's just one of those things. But anyway, you might come across some odd issues here and there. Just beware. But anyway, all of these work fine. There's some nice ones here. We'll have a quick bash at a couple of them to give you an idea of what else you can actually play on your Super Pockets. Okay, so to access the Evercade menu, press the menu button and choose Evercade, and then grab your cart. We're going to have a look at Legacy of Kain Collection. Obviously it just slides in the back as such. Very easy, straightforward, and then you've got your choice of games. No fancy options or anything to choose from, just the games. Now, as I probably mentioned earlier, when you're actually trying to choose your save status, it is hard to see which one you're actually trying to pick. Now there is a little bit of a border around the one you've chosen, but you can hardly see it. Once the picture's in place, it is actually very difficult to see. And I think the colour scheme that's been chosen for the in-game does not help this one bit. So obviously you can tell perhaps by how many times you press a button which save state you've chosen, but other than that it's probably a little bit blind. It's hard to tell. But yeah, let's have a quick look at this game. This is one of the sort of first bosses which you come across. And you can't do a thing to this boss. You basically have to lure it into the middle there, or trap it in these doors here. I think you need to jump up in these doors here. What's the jump button? Again, this does utilise the shoulder buttons, which makes it really tricky to actually control. And it's not ideal, so you have to bear in mind that when you're choosing your Evercade carts, that not every game will be massively suitable for each game. But anyway, oh, I've just missed. Oh dear, oh no. So you're supposed to then lift that lever to the door and then trap the monster. That's the only way to pretty much kill it, and then just keep doing that. And you'll eventually lure the monster into the middle trap there. But anyway, that is what it is. Tricky game, highly recommend it. Not really perfect for the Super Pocket, but still, it's a class game. Now certainly also worth having a look at is Tomb Raider Collection. This is just released earlier this year on Evercade, and it's great fun. Again, it does utilise a lot of the shoulder buttons throughout the game, so Maybe not perfect for your Super Pocket, but still very classy to play this on the go. Very cool, and I absolutely love it. Oh, I definitely need weapons for this. Oh, I definitely don't want to do that. Oops. Now, as I mentioned, this cart did not work on my Atari limited edition version, but happy to say it does work fine on this. It does recognise right away, which is nice. And then you can play Cathedral, which didn't actually work initially on the Capcom and Taito carts, but it's happy to announce that the latest firmware is on these devices, meaning you can pretty much play any game at all on your Super Pocket. And this game is excellent, but very, very challenging. And lastly, I'm not going to try them all, we'll just try some of my favourites. This is Duke Nukem Collection 1, and this plays great, especially Duke Nukem 1 and 2. Not sure why the graphics sort of seem a little bit blurred on that sort of screenshot there, but the game itself is absolutely fine. Very addictive stuff, and a lot of fun, and Blaze have done a fantastic job in remastering these onto the sort of Evercade devices, and happily say it does play excellent on the Super Pockets as well. This is a great game to play on the go, and still looks and sounds fantastic stuff. If there's a cart you need to buy, I would recommend this one as a starting place, but there's so many to choose from. If you're not sure what ones to pick up, have a look on Evercade's website and have a look at the cartridge section. There's also a section to look at on Hypermegatech and see what you can find that might suit you. There's lots to choose from. Excellent stuff. Okay guys, so that's our look at the Technos edition of the Super Pocket. A nice little device, maybe not the best value compared to some of the other Super Pockets. I love the sort of colour scheme, it is really, really cool. Although the onboard colour scheme probably should be a little bit more bold because it does make it a little bit tricky on the eye, but it's nice to play Double Dragon Arcade finally on sort of Evercade Super Pocket devices. Excellent stuff, and if you obviously missed out on your Technos collections, if you've just joined Evercade, this might be the best and cheapest way to play some of these games rather than paying over the odd prices on eBay. But I guess if you're a fan of Double Dragon, you're going to be picking this up. If you're not, you might want to think twice and maybe pick another Super Pocket that has games that you probably prefer to play. But overall, it's not bad. Even I enjoyed it, and I'm not a massive Double Dragon fan, and I still enjoyed the experience. It was great to finally play Double Dragon Arcade on these devices. Maybe we'll see it on an Evercade cart at some point down the line. Just forgot before I finish up, now these are the cases that you get from Hypermegatech or Funstock. They are just canvas material, and they do the job. They are only $9.99, but I picked up a sort of hard case one from Amazon, and this sort of has almost the same colour scheme, but it is a hard case. You basically slide your Super Pocket in here, you can put your carts in here, and these are probably a lot more sturdier, although they are a bit pricier at £15 instead. Personally, I prefer these ones rather than the canvas sort of versions, but obviously that is a personal choice at the end of the day. But I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in either of these. It will be an affiliate link for the Amazon one, just as a heads up. But overall, that's a really decent enough handheld. If you're a Double Dragon fan, you're definitely going to want this. Thanks very much for watching. We'll catch you again in the next one. Bye for now. Oh, you don't want to do that?